Hey there, I'm Christine Karsten alongside Deb Carriveau here at Hubbard Hill because we are officially launching a brand new series. It's called Living Wisdom, and what we're doing, we're talking about dementia, and we're helping you by providing you hope after that diagnosis because it can be so overwhelming. These weekly segments are going to be brought to you, and they're going to be broken up into two different parts as we tackle this topic every week, a new topic every week, I should say. The first 5 minutes is going to be what you need to know because we know that you are so busy. After that, we're going to kind of dive into examples, maybe tips, tricks, things that you've learned along the way to again help you with your journey. We'd love for you to stay for all of it. But again, we know that your time is really valuable and important. So the first thing we're going to do, their very first segment here is really talking about dementia, what it is and what it isn't. Deb, when I met you, I was like, I'm a little confused about what's under this umbrella. So what is dementia and what isn't it?
Okay. So lots of people believe dementia is part of normal aging. It is not. It's a very specific brain disease that occurs for some individuals, but not all individuals. What it is, that term dementia refers to a group of symptoms that a person has due to whatever the nature of their brain disease is. So it is not part of normal aging. It is collectively a group of symptoms.
So I guess I was confused because you see these walks and it says dementia and Alzheimer's. So I got a little bit confused about that. Okay. What is dementia versus Alzheimer's?
Okay. So as I referred to earlier, dementia refers to a group of symptoms. I tell people to think about it as an umbrella, and this umbrella has all those symptoms that typically you think about with somebody with dementia. Memory loss, poor judgment and reasoning, confusion, disorientation, poor judgment, all those kinds of things. So that's what that word dementia refers to, is that group of symptoms. Now, Alzheimer's disease is one neurological or brain disease that creates those symptoms we know as dementia. But there are multiple other kinds of diseases that can cause those symptoms as well. Things like Parkinson's disease, Lewy body dementia, a vascular kind of dementia. So there are other kinds of illnesses that are brain or neurologically related that can cause those symptoms. So everyone with Alzheimer's has dementia, that group of symptoms, but not everybody who has those symptoms necessarily has Alzheimer's disease.
Why is it that I feel, maybe this is just a personal feeling, that you only hear Alzheimer's? You don't hear about all the other ones. Do you feel that too?
That is true, and one of the reasons is Alzheimer's is the number one most common type of dementia that people deal with. The second most common one is what we call vascular or a multi-infarct dementia related to circulatory issues with the brain.
I know we're going to dive into this a little bit more coming up, but if you feel like someone you know or love is showing some symptoms, what do you do?
So the most important thing I can tell people is to get to see a neurologist, get tested, and get diagnosis. The issue is there's so many other things that are totally reversible that initially can look like dementia symptomology. Things like vitamin deficiencies, things like dehydration and electrolyte imbalance, infections, all of those things. But if you can treat the cause of those issues, what looks like dementia symptomology will go away. So it is reversible. So
go ahead. You always hear about prevention and acting quickly with everything, right? I feel like that's kind of the brand. Is acting quickly, does that help with dementia?
Absolutely. So the sooner we get testing and the sooner we have a definitive diagnosis, the quicker we can treat. And the earlier in the disease process that we're able to do appropriate treatment, the better quality of life and the better chances we have to slow down the progression of the disease and keep people functional for a longer period of time.
Getting the help you need feels overwhelming. Sometimes it's hard to even find a family care physician. But is that who you contact? Is that the starting point if you feel like a family member needs help?
So yeah, initially most people will reach out to their family physician because that's the person who has history with your loved one and kind of knows what the course of their medical status has been. and typically they will need a referral from their family physician to reach out and have a connection to a neurologist, which is really who should be doing testing and diagnosing to be able to get the specifics about what kind of issue you're dealing with. If it's just an acute medical issue, things like dehydration, infection, those things can be treated by a family physician, and if you do that, symptomology goes away, then you may not need a neurologist.
Absolutely, so important. And that really is our first 5 minutes of what you need to know about dementia, what it is, what it isn't. So again, I'd love for you to stay with us because we're going to dive into a little bit more here. One thing that is coming to mind, how do you have that conversation? That can't be easy. If you have a loved one who's showing these symptoms, how do you say, hey, let's go to the doctor? That's hard. It
is hard. And oftentimes, especially early on in the process, individuals who are showing symptomology don't realize that. And they don't know or understand or recognize necessarily that they are having issues. So lots of times what I tell families is to just make a routine doctor appointment. Just say, hey, we're going for a physical, or hey, we're going to get your medications renewed, or whatever it is. It's a process that we refer to as therapeutic truth. And sometimes because of the nature of dementia and the way people don't always comprehend or understand ways they're putting themselves at risks or ways that they are showing symptomology, sometimes you have to work around that, be creative, and try to get them. And the other thing I really advise is that loved ones have a conversation with the physician in advance of the appointment.
Makes sense.
So they know and understand what it is you're coming to deal with, what you've seen, what it is that you need help and assistance with.
I'm really not trying to be smart here, but as somebody who does have a parent who at times repeats stories a bit, or in a short time that you think, oh, maybe we should check this out. Is it normal? Like what is normal and what maybe is a red flag to get that appointment?
Okay. So things that are normal as people age is that brain processing slows down. So people may not be as quick in responses to conversation. They may falter with some word finding. They may repeat the same story multiple times because they just get absent-minded and don't realize they've already told you that 3 times.
Yeah,
okay?
seriously,
Right?
yeah.
But when it becomes a concern is when that memory loss crosses the line from just what looks like normal aging to something that now is interfering with my ability to function normally on a day-to-day basis. So one of the examples I use is that oftentimes the more stress we have in our life, the more absent-minded or forgetful we get.
Yes.
So I might forget where I left my keys. But when I find my keys, I go, oh, there's my keys for my car. Someone who's actually crossing that line and now going into a clinical dementia process will find the keys, not necessarily know what the keys go to, or they may find the keys in a really unusual place that doesn't make any logical sense, like in my freezer. So it's when it crosses that line and it now becomes a barrier for me to be able to function normally on a day-to-day basis.
Totally makes sense. Let's talk about what's happening when you get dementia. What's physically happening to your body to change this?
So what happens is the damage that's being done to the different lobes of the brain is what determines what symptomology looks like. For people living with an Alzheimer's disease process, for example, their progression, their changes happen very slowly over a very long period of time. I tell people to think about it like a creek that's running down the side of a mountain. It's very slow moving, it's very progressive, it happens a little bit at a time. For the vascular kind of dementia, and I'm talking about these because these are the 2 most common types that people deal with. With that vascular kind of dementia, typically what you're going to see in that person's symptomology is more of what we call a stair-step kind of progression. So people with this vascular kind of dementia, their symptomology is based on where in that area of their brain is that blood flow slowed down and not getting enough oxygen. And so that's what's going to determine what my symptoms look like, where with something like Alzheimer's disease, it can impact multiple lobes of the brain at the same time. And so for people with vascular dementia, they have this very leveled out kind of symptomology. And then they'll have a little area of the brain that doesn't have enough oxygen. They'll do a little brain cell death, and then they'll drop and then level out again. Where with people with Alzheimer's disease, it's more this very progressive, slow downhill decline that happens.
Is life over? Because as we were talking, a lot of feelings come with a diagnosis of dementia. There's fear, and there's this feeling that you've lost your loved one. It's done. But that's not the case.
That is not the case. So life is over as you previously knew it. So when we talked earlier about this is a life-changing disease, it absolutely is. But that does not mean that there cannot be quality of life for your loved one who's been diagnosed. It is a matter of understanding how things change and how do you now interact with your individual, your loved one, and how do we change how we interact with that individual because of now where they're walking in their journey. I oftentimes tell people when I'm teaching and doing education to think about it that once your loved one has a dementia diagnosis, it's like they live on the moon, we live on the earth, and the laws of gravity no longer apply to them. And so we have to be the individuals that strap on the oxygen, put on our gravity boots, put on our spacesuit, so that we can go to where they are, because they cannot be where we are. Their entire sense of reality and how they interpret their world, how they interact with their world, completely changes over time because of the nature of this illness.
Yeah, there's so much to dive into, and that's exactly why we decided to launch this series, to help you if you have any questions, let you know you're not alone, and really dive into this, explain more. So when you feel like life is over, hopefully you have some tips and tricks and some guidance from this series to let you know it's not. It's just learning a new way to live. When it comes to the topic of dementia, what it is and what it isn't, is there anything else that you feel is really important that we should talk about?
So I think the most important thing is to have people remember, despite the diagnosis, your loved one is still who they always were in their core personhood. It's just the way they can express it, the way they see it, the way they show it changes because their ability to do that changes. So it really is about helping people understand you can have hope, you can have joy, you can continue to love and be loved with a dementia diagnosis. It's just reaching out and letting people help you understand how to do that. A big part of the fear related to a dementia diagnosis is people are, oh my gosh, now what do I do?
Right.
Okay, how do I get through this? And it's the fear of what people don't know. And that's what we're all about. This whole series is so that we can help people find their way on this path and not feel lost.
As always, if you have a question, just type it below and we'll be monitoring those and hopefully answer them as this series continues to go on. But next week we'll have a brand new video for you covering a whole nother topic and hopefully helping you as you navigate this journey.
God bless you and your loved ones.